Now we get to the fun part of the evening. Because I have no desire at all to get the left to stop telling their story. None. I don't have that right. I'm an American. I live in a free country. People can say whatever they want to say. I don't want to get those people off the air like they do. They want to shut up Rush Limbaugh. They want to get Glenn Beck off the air. They want to shut down Fox News. They want to do all this other stuff. There's an expression that I love, and that is, liberals want conservatives to shut up, and conservatives want liberals to keep talking. Because our arguments make sense, and theirs don't. It's that simple. So I don't want to shut up their argument. I don't want to stop their story. But what I do want to do is I want to spend the next part of the evening giving you some ammunition so that you can tell a better story. Your story will be better because your story is based on the truth. And the truth is a powerful ally. It's a powerful lever, telling the truth. People instinctively know when you're telling the truth. So, if every civilization dies from an internal battle, and if this is the first time in American history where the future of the country is not dependent on muskets or rifles or battleships or bombers, but dependent on ideas and the ability to persuade and the ability to tell a better story, if that's the fight and you're the soldiers in that fight, that's why you're here tonight, then you've got to have some ammunition. So I'm here to ammo you up. Ready? Okay. Let's talk about our story. Let's talk about what we believe. When you get right down to it, everybody in this room, when you really get down to it, is a political party of one. We may all count ourselves as Republicans, some of us may be Tea Partiers, but when you get right down to every single issue, if I asked any one of you about every single issue in your life, no two people in the room would be the same. But there are certainly some things that we can all agree on together. And I've picked 7 of them. You may find more, you may find fewer, you may not agree with all of these, maybe agree with some of them, but I think you'll probably agree with most of them. So let's talk about 7 things that we together believe as a way of understanding our story. And let's put some ammunition on the table so you can go out and start telling a story to counter their big liberal narrative. I think the first thing that we believe as conservatives is we believe in the idea of small government and free enterprise. And they're related. They're absolutely bound together. You really need to understand this. Free enterprise and small government are absolutely directly connected because any society of humans has to have certain things accomplished. The roads have to be paved, people have to be defended, but even little things have to happen. You have to feed people, you have to house them, you have to make automobiles, you have to have dry cleaning, you have to have grocery stores, all of these things. There are really 2 different ways to do that. You can have the government provide all of these services, or you can have individual people get together and provide them voluntarily. So let's look at these 2 different models. Now, I've been an anti-communist for most of my life only because I met 2 people who actually escaped from communist countries, who risked their lives to get out of communist countries. One from Bulgaria and one from Cuba. And they told me what life under socialism is like, especially big state socialism like you get in Bulgaria or Russia or Cuba. And they said, you'd think that the worst part of living in a socialist state would be the fact that since it's essentially lawless, if the secret police wants to come and take your family in the middle of the night, they can just take you away and you'll never be heard from again. And yes, that's disturbing. But they said the real absolute burden of living in one of those societies is that every moment of every waking moment of your life, every moment of every day, you are reminded of how utterly and completely worthless you are. How utterly and completely worthless. Let's take the Soviet Union. Just before the Soviet Union fell, if you wanted to get a loaf of bread, you might have to wait in line for 6 or 7 hours, in line, in the cold, in Russia, to get inside of a store that very likely didn't have anything on the shelves. What are you going to do about it? You're going to go to another government? No, you're stuck. And if they didn't like it, too bad for you. You're a prole, you're a cog, you're a piece of one of 100 million other pieces, and if you don't like it, you can go. 6, 7 hours to get into a store. If you had a plumbing problem, if your toilet is overflowing and there's sewage on your floor, anywhere from 5 days to 10 days to get somebody to come and take care of that. If you wanted a new apartment, that was probably a 3-year wait. If you wanted a new car, that was a 10-year wait. A 10-year wait for your 3-cylinder Trabant. Right? 10 years for your car before you got your number and your slot. Every moment of every day, you're told how worthless and meaningless and useless you are. They don't care. Here in America, we do things differently, but if you want to know what that is like, the closest we can come to it here in America, at least until very recently, is the passport office or the DMV, or the post office. Why do we all laugh when we hear about these things? Why? Because that's where Americans contact services that are only provided by the big state, and it's awful. And there's not a person in this room, I'll bet you anything, there's not a person in this room who facing having to go to the DMV, when presented from a guy across the street who had a lovely, brand new, gorgeous office, air-conditioned, all the people on the counter who said, I will have you out of this office with your DMV needs met in 10 minutes or your money back. You'd pay $10 extra or $20 extra to do it because your time is worth it, right? Everybody would do that. That guy'd make a ton of money. He's not allowed to. That's why there are no other DMVs. But somebody once said, well, I don't like the post office. It takes forever. The service is lousy, and I don't know if the mail's going to get there. What if we set up a private post office and called it Federal Express? Okay, so if the big state does nothing but waste your time because they don't care, private enterprise does just the opposite. Now, you'll listen to progressives and liberals, and they'll tell you that corporations are evil. They're not even going to make the argument about the quality of life, about how much better you get treated by a corporation. Because a corporation, you see, if you have a series of private companies, if you don't like the way you're being treated in one of those, you can go to another. That's why things work in America, because people are competing for your money. But I will tell you right now that corporations are infinitely more moral than governments are. And the reason for this is very simple. A business has to persuade you to voluntarily give up your money to them in exchange for the service that they provide. The government will provide those services no matter what quality, and they will take your money at gunpoint. How many people here own their own house? Oh, it's a big number. I hate to be the person to break this to you. None of you own your own houses. None of you own your own houses. You pay property tax, right? What happens if you don't pay your property tax? They take your house, right? You lease your house from the government for the rest of your life. You lease it. Okay? You don't own it anymore. That's how pernicious and subtle this change is happening in America. But America has always been a land where people voluntarily chose to go to individuals and get those services from them. And that's why we believe in small government and private enterprise together. And that's the first thing I think we believe. Second thing we believe in is most conservatives have an innate distrust of elitism and elitist thinking and elitists in general. Next time you run into a person who tells you that they should be running the economy or other people should be running the economy because they went to Harvard, you see, and they have a degree from Harvard in business administration or political science, what they're really telling you is, you idiots should let us smart people run things. But the wonderful thing about running into people like this is, whenever anybody makes that argument, you are 100% certain to know that you are talking to a museum-grade moron. Museum-grade moron. And I can prove it to you. You don't have to take my word for it. I'll prove it to you. Here's the idea behind elitism. The idea behind elitism is to say, let's take the 10 smartest economists in the country, and let's say the average IQ is 100, but let's say every one of these 10 guys has 150 IQ. They're half again smarter than the rest of us knuckle-dragging rubes out there. And you put them all in a room in Washington, D.C., and they'll run the economy, and they'll do a much better job than we are because they're so smart, you see? Here's the trap of elitism, and this is why elitism is such an idiotic idea. The problem with elitism is, an elitist thinks that a guy sitting in office in Washington, D.C. knows more about running the gas station out here on the corner of Irvine Avenue than the guy that actually runs the gas station out here on Irvine Avenue. He thinks that in Washington, D.C., from 3,000 miles away, he can better determine how much the gas is going to cost, how much it costs for a tire change. He thinks he can factor in all the things like my brother-in-law works for a shipping company, so I get my tires a little bit lower, so I can charge a little bit lower for this. He thinks that he can do all of these things better than the person that's actually on the scene. So think of it this way. Here's what elitism wants you to believe. Elitists want you to think that 10 fast computer processors in one place can process more information than 308 million processors spread throughout the country, dealing with local information in real time, dealing only with the connections that most affect them. They actually think that 10 people are smarter than 308 million people, 10 people on the other side of the country. It's moronic on its face. Elitism is a failure of intelligence. And when you run into an elitist, you're talking about a guy who's so stupid that he cannot see this fundamental fact. There's no way that 10 people can process more information than 308 million people, drawing on 200, 300, or 7,000 years of experience of trial and error that we call common sense. What it is, it's an appeal for their unearned moral and intellectual superiority. They haven't earned it, they don't deserve it, don't give it to them. Third thing we believe as conservatives, this is my favorite by far. Conservatives believe in the idea of wealth creation. Now, I think the idea of wealth creation is the wedge. It's the wedge that divides people into conservative and liberal. So let's take a look at the two models and see whether we are conservatives or liberals. Liberals think that there is a limited amount of wealth in the world. And if a guy has a $20 million jet, he's a villain. He has to be a villain. Because if there's a limited amount of money in the world, for him to have a $20 million jet means he had to take that $20 million from somebody else. He has a $20 million jet means that other people are poorer because of it. Clearly, this is what they argue. Clearly. You'll hear the President of the United States of America say, well, these guys can't have their corporate jets, and that means that some guy's not going to go to school. What? What difference does that make? This guy's ability to go to school is not going to be determined by whether or not this guy has a corporate jet, but that's what they believe. Limited pot of wealth, right? And if somebody has more, they're a villain. So if you're a liberal, businessmen are bad guys because businessmen have a lot of money, generally speaking. I've been a businessman and I don't have that much money, but good businessmen do. So there's a limited pot of money, so the businessman is the villain. However, if you believe that wealth can be generated, created out of thin air, then the guy with the $20 million jet only has a $20 million jet because he's produced so much wealth that he's able to retain a little bit of it for himself. He's created hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. Nobody who's in business gets to keep 100% of the profits, right? If you have a $20 million luxury item, that means you've created so much wealth that you can afford to keep a percentage of it. That is your $20 million jet. So, if wealth is limited, the liberals are right, and the businessmen are villains. If wealth can be created, the conservatives are right, and businessmen are heroes because they crank the prosperity machine. So which one is it? Well, you might be interested to know that during the Civil War in 1863, the budget of the United States government was $530 million. It was about $500 million in 1863. Today, the budget is pushing $4 trillion. That's 4,000 billion dollars. We're spending about 8,000 times more money than we spent during the Civil War. Where did it come from? I'm waiting. Where did it come from? If you look at a picture, you can Google this online. If you look at downtown Los Angeles in 1863, no exaggeration now, you'll see 2 adobe huts and a hitching post. I just drove past Los Angeles on the way down here. It's gotten a little better since then. If you look at downtown Los Angeles today, you see 70-story skyscrapers with high-speed elevators. You see electricity, air conditioning. You see plasma televisions. You see Mercedes-Benzes. You see MRI machines. You see all of these things. If wealth is limited, like the liberals want you to believe, where did the money come from? Did we steal the wealth to make Los Angeles out of Somalia? Was New York constructed by stealing everything out of Mogadishu? Of course not. Mogadishu is still poor, while we have become enormously rich in the last 150 years is because we can generate wealth. Americans, this is an amazing term, nobody thinks about this, understand that you can make money. You can make money. You can make it. And this is such an important point, I want to give you 3 quick examples of how you can actually generate wealth. First thing you can do to generate wealth is you can create something. If I go down to Kinko's and I buy a legal pad and a pen, I'm out $4. But if I write a screenplay for Weekend at Bernie's 3, let's say Bernie's Revenge, and Hollywood buys it, and they pay me $1 million, have I generated $1 million of wealth? Yes, I have. I've generated something that wasn't there before. Let's take a less silly example. What if you write a hit song or a sonnet? Or what if you're an architect and you sketch out the outline of a building? Or what if you just write the business plan for a dry cleaning factory or a dry cleaning plant that wasn't there before? Have you created wealth through this act of imagination? Absolutely you have. Absolutely you have. That's obvious. The worst job I ever had was working as a temp in an insurance company. I did this job for 1 day. They took me way in the back past all the cubicles and they gave me a stack of computer printouts this deep, the old ones, the green and white ones with the little dots down the side. And it was this deep in a notebook, and there was another one just like it off to the side. And the person said to me, Bill, this is a list of customer complaints. And this is a list of checks that we've issued as a result of these complaints. And what we want you to do is to go through each one of these customers and make sure that they were issued a check so that this was made up to them. And I did that for about 4 hours, and that was the last I worked at that job. But I thought to myself, many years later, what possibly could I have been paid for that job for? What wealth could I have created that was worth $7 an hour that they paid me? I couldn't make any sense out of it. Then I realized, no. You see, a corrected list is worth more than an uncorrected list is. Because if I hadn't checked those lists and somebody missed their check, then that person's not a client anymore. They're out $30,000. Or if I don't catch it and some higher up DP who's worth $500 or $50 an hour or whatever, if he has to deal with a problem, then that also costs them money. I created a little bit of wealth by cross-checking that list. An alphabetized list is worth more money than an unalphabetized list is because it's easier to use, it's more valuable. So every time you add complexity to the world, you create a little bit of wealth. But the easiest and the best way to create wealth by far is through trade, and this is just so much fun. Let's imagine that we live in the mountain tribe up in the hills, and we're hunters. That's pretty much what we do. And since we have to hunt every day, we're very, very, very good at making spears. Our spears are absolutely straight, and they're solid, and they're tempered, and we carve little magical runes into the side, and our arrowheads are made out of razor-sharp flint, and they're securely bound on. They fly like an arrow. But since we don't do much gathering up there in the hills, our baskets look like birds' nests, right? Now, meanwhile, down by the seashore is a different tribe, and they're not hunters at all. They're gatherers. Now, the gatherers have an entirely different problem because they don't do much hunting. They spear fish occasionally, so their spears are real wobbly and crooked, and they break easily, but their baskets are woven so tight that they'll hold water, right? Now, one day, the guy from the hunter tribe in the Midlands meets a guy from the gatherer tribe, and they stand there looking at each other, and the hunter guy goes, I have to tell you, that is the nicest basket I've ever seen. And the gatherer guy says, I must admit, I've never seen a spear quite like that. And the one guy says, I'll tell you what, I'm going to trade you one of my excellent spears for one of your top quality baskets. They make the trade, they both go home. Which one comes out on top? Both of them. That's the magic of trade. You'd rather have the Happy Meal, and McDonald's would rather have the $2.50 because they got lots of hamburgers. You happen to have a little more money right now. You want one? You give them one. The real way that trade generates wealth, though, is through incentive, because the guy who made the trade for the basket comes home with the basket. And now all of the chicks in the village want to see this bitchin' basket. It's the only good basket in town. We're a hunter tribe. Everybody's got great spears, but I'm the only guy in the entire tribe who's got this awesome basket. And yes, special showings of the basket will be available later on this evening. Now, at this point in human history, we can divide the succeeding generations into Republicans and Democrats, because the Democrats will say, I'm going to bequeath this wonderful basket to my generations below me, and my grandchildren will inherit the basket. And you got one basket. But a Republican will say, as he's going to sleep that night, I just gave that guy one of my many spears in exchange for this wonderful basket that everybody wants, that makes me wealthy in my community. You know, if I get up an hour early tomorrow before I go hunting and make another spear, and after I come home, after I eat dinner, if I stay up an hour late and make another spear, then the next day I can go back down to that guy with 2 extra spears. I will do extra work. He goes down with 2 extra spears. The guy down there is thinking the same lines. He's a Republican too. He's got 2 extra baskets. Now the guy comes back. Now he has 3 baskets. And he wakes up the next morning and he goes, I finally have something for my idiot son-in-law to do. My daughter is not going to starve after all. I'm going to employ this loser to do nothing but make spears all day. He just sits on a rock. Now he's going to start making spears. And now I don't even have to make the spears anymore. The spears just happen. Now, when all this is done, and the community up here has all these wonderful baskets, and they down there have all these great spears, who loses? Nobody loses. Who's being taken advantage of in this capitalistic transaction? Who comes out on the bottom? Nobody does. The village up here of the hunters have fantastic baskets that they never used to have before. They couldn't have made those baskets if they spent their entire lives trying to make them. Down there below, the gatherers have terrific spears they never would have had. It's a big win all across the board. And trade and ideas like this used to happen in America. They still do. It's still the greatest place to put ideas and money together. But free trade is the key to wealth creation, and the belief in wealth creation, I think, is the third thing that we conservatives believe in. Fourth thing we believe in, really pretty straightforward. Conservatives tend to believe in natural law. What do I mean by that? Well, natural law is very simple. Natural law is the belief that there are laws that are common to all people that are above political laws. They are above the laws of man. They are the laws of either God or nature. You can take your pick. But they are laws that exist above political laws. Natural laws we can all agree on. Every single person on planet Earth believes that it's wrong to murder your neighbor, believes it's wrong to rape a woman, believes it's wrong to steal from somebody else. Even the criminals know they're being wrong, but every culture on Earth believes in these things. And our founding fathers sat there for years of their lives before they ever got together and tried to figure out, how can we boil these things down? What are the irreducible natural laws? Turns out there's really only two laws, really, when you get down to it. Do everything you say you're going to do. That's the basis of contract law. And do not infringe upon other people or their property. That's criminal and tort law. But the United States is the only country in human history ever that was founded on natural law. And if you think about the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Independence was an appeal to the world, to natural law. The Declaration of Independence says this: we understand that we colonies are about to break the law. We are, in fact, legal colonies of King George. We are his lawful subjects, but we are going to break that law because King George has violated natural law and not allowed us to govern ourselves. We hold those truths to be self-evident. We have the right to self-government. We are therefore declaring openly that we are going to break these political laws, and our appeal is to the laws of God and nature, and that is who we are appealing to in the world, and that's what the Declaration of Independence is. It's the only country in the world ever founded on natural law. And many people misunderstand this idea. A lot of people think that the First Amendment to the Constitution grants you the right to free speech. It does no such thing. It does no such thing. The Constitution does not grant you the right to free speech. You have the right to free speech inherent in you at birth. The Constitution says that the government cannot deprive you of a right that you have at birth. The Constitution doesn't give you any rights. The Constitution simply tells the government it cannot violate the rights that you have at birth. Why is this so important? Thank you. Why is this so important? Well, I'll reduce it very simply. It's so important because Barack Obama cannot take away my right to free speech because Barack Obama did not give me the right to free speech. The government didn't give us any of these things. That's why they can't take them away. It doesn't belong to them. It is on a higher plane. Natural law is the foundation for all of our freedoms because we understand that there will come a point beyond which we will not go. If the Congress of the United States were to make this decision, let's say that the House of Representatives were to vote 435 to nothing to repeal the First Amendment. They send it to the Senate, they vote 100 to nothing to repeal the First Amendment. They send it to the President and he signs it into law. Is that law valid? No. No, it's not. It's not valid. You can't take that away, no matter what. Politicians cannot take it away. Governments cannot take it away. And a people who understand this in their marrow will come to a point where they will fight in the streets to protect those rights because those rights have not been given them, they will not be taken from them, right? We understand that as Americans. That's why if they ever decide to pass a law like that, people will be in the streets with rifles, and I'll be one of them, and you probably will be too. Natural law, fourth thing we believe. I think the fifth thing we believe in is a remarkable one because it's the one we're slandered with the most. And I've known a lot of conservatives and Republicans, and I've been to a lot of Tea Party events, and I can tell you with confidence, I've never heard disagreement about this from anybody, not one. Conservatives believe in the idea of legal immigration. Legal immigration. We understand that we're all immigrants in this country. Everybody in this country is from someplace else. We're all immigrants. Even the Indians came across the Bering Land Sea Bridge. Everybody in this country is an immigrant, and we understand that. So why do we have a problem with illegal immigration? Well, it's really a two-part thing. First of all, why do people come to America? Why are illegal immigrants flooding into America? Some people say that's for the economy, but the economy is just the basis of law. We have laws in America that protect free trade, so they come for a healthy economy. And they come for political freedoms. They're escaping oppression and murder from lawless places. They're coming here to escape lawlessness. So if the first thing they do when they come here is break the law, what are they bringing? What are they bringing? It is an absurd thing to say that you are going to flee from lawlessness and come to a lawful country and your first act will be to break the law. But the real reason that conservatives are opposed to illegal immigration and in favor of legal immigration is because illegal immigration is a slap, it's not a slap in the face, it's a spit in the eye to every legal immigrant out there now. At this moment, there are millions of people all around the world who want to live in America, standing in line, filling out forms, giving up large sums of money, waiting for 7 years, 8 years, 9 years. They come here, they raise their hand, they swear to be Americans, they pass a test that most of us can't pass. I'm speaking as a conservative now when I tell you there are no better Americans than first-generation immigrants. They're the best Americans there are. And we would live in a wonderful country if we could take 50 million legal immigrants, bring them into America, and ship 50 million of these American-hating sons of bees out of San Francisco back out into the third world where they want to live. So that's number 5. Number 6, simplest one of all. I think conservatives believe in gun rights because conservatives understand that without the Second Amendment, the other 26 are meaningless. The Founding Fathers understood human nature. They studied every culture in history and looked at what worked and what didn't work. And these were the best, most noble, honorable, decent men in the world that have ever lived. And they looked at each other and they said, we can't be trusted with this kind of power. We can't be trusted with this kind of power. Ultimate power, said Mao, comes from the barrel of a gun. It's the only thing Mao got right in his entire life. The founders understood that ultimate power had to be vested in the people. You don't have to own a gun. It's up to you. It's your business. But they know that when push comes to shove, the people who are doing the pushing and the shoving are we, the people. The rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the ultimate guarantee. And as a quick aside, I want to know why it is that liberals and progressives always talk about gun control, but never talk about crime control. Why is that? If guns just literally leapt off the table and just started randomly shooting people dead, there would be nobody alive in a gun store today. They'd be dead 3 minutes into it. So why do liberals have a problem with gun control and not with crime control? My personal feeling is because most liberal elitists don't have anything to do with crime. They don't live in crime-ridden neighborhoods. The judges on the Ninth Circuit Court that let these rapists and murderers go back out into the community don't go back out into their community. They live in gated communities. Rosie O'Donnell can tell you that you don't have a right to defend yourself because Rosie O'Donnell has a security man with a gun. She's a very important person. She's not like one of you folks. She's a celebrity, you see. Think about that. They don't have a problem with crime control. They have a problem with gun control, and I think it's because they know that they can only get away with so much. Only get away with so much. And when you think about these societies that have been utterly brutalized like the Nazis, my dad, first thing I remember my dad ever telling me, first political thought I ever had was, I said, Dad, I saw some movie on the Nazis that said, if the Gestapo came and wanted to take us out of here, would they be able to do it? Would you be able to save us? He said, son, if they came to get us, I couldn't stop them from getting us. But I could make damn sure that 2 or 3 of them don't go home that night. Damn sure about that. That's all it takes, right? There aren't enough soldiers in the world to pull the entire armed population out of their houses. So, 6th thing we believe in is gun rights. And I think the 7th, thank you, I'll take a drink. Here's the last one. I think the last thing we believe in as Americans is we believe in the idea of American exceptionalism. The President of the United States of America was asked a couple years ago, they asked Barack Obama, they said, Mr. President, do you believe in the idea of American exceptionalism? And he said, why, yes, I do. I believe in American exceptionalism the way that I'm sure that the Brits believe in British exceptionalism and the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism. In other words, he said absolutely nothing. And he sounded like an idiot. Because whether you agree with the idea of American exceptionalism, it is at least a political concept. There's no one out there talking about Greek exceptionalism, Mr. President, so stop the dissembling and answer the question. The answer you gave us is, you don't believe in American exceptionalism. You think that when we talk about American exceptionalism, you think that we're talking about American patriotism, but we're not. They're completely separate things. Of course the Greeks are proud of their country, and of course the Brits are proud of their country. We're not talking about that. I respect them being proud of their country. I can connect to it. Right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about exceptionalism. So, how do we measure exceptionalism? How can we say a country is exceptional? If it's not an assertion, how can we prove it? Well, there's probably 4 ways we can measure whether a country is exceptional or not. Militarily, economically, scientifically, and culturally. So let's look at these very quickly. Militarily. Does anybody want to guess how many aircraft carriers the United States of America had when the Japanese signed the surrender document in Tokyo Bay in 1945 on board the U.S. Missouri? Any idea how many we had? We had 33. We had 33 aircraft carriers at the end of World War II. Earlier, in 1942, right after Midway, we had 1. In fact, one of my favorite sayings in all of history, for 6 months there, it was the USS Enterprise versus the Empire of Japan. By the time it was over, we had 33. By the time that surrender document was signed, we had fleets of world-spanning B-29 bombers, could go anywhere in the world, and we had the atomic bomb and the will to use it. And I am telling you now as a student of history that every single empire in human history, without exception, would have used that unmatched military might to put their flag in every capital, in every country on the world, and there's nothing anyone could have done about it. Nothing. And what did we do? We cut those aircraft carriers up into scrap to make skyscrapers. We put blades through the wings of those bombers and turned them into beer cans. And we spent $45 billion in 1946. That's an unbelievable sum of money. To our mortal adversaries who a few months ago wanted us dead. We got them up on their feet, both of them. Both of them. That has never, ever happened. And I don't think it's ever going to happen again. It's never, ever, ever happened before. We're not a great people because we have a great military. We have a great military because we're great people. We're moral, decent, restrained, civilized people. That's the history of America. And nobody bows in respect to the fighting men that we put in the field before. The men that stood on Missionary Ridge, or Bunker Hill, or went up Mount Suribachi, or in the streets of Baghdad. But I'm here to tell you, we have never fielded soldiers like the men and women we have out there now. Never. Never. Never fielded them. The men and women we have deployed now are as tough and as deadly as any soldiers that we've ever put in the field. But these people don't have to just be deadly. They have to be careful. When you're going up Mount Suribachi, anything that moves in front of you, you can shoot at. But in Baghdad, in Afghanistan, where these people use women as shields, the difference between the good guys and the bad guys is the bad guys hide behind women. We put their women behind us. Right? If you can't see that fundamental difference, I pity you. I pity you. We have the best people in the world out there. They're not just soldiers, they're also marriage counselors, they're business counselors, they're traffic cops, they're everything. They're the best people out there. So militarily, we are the most remarkable nation in history. There's never been a country that far above everybody else militarily. So militarily, certainly, Mr. President, we're an exceptional country. There's no question about that. Okay, what about economically? This one's super easy. China has 4 times our population and produces 1/4 of our GDP. We have 1/4 of their population, we produce 4 times as much as they do. Why? Because they're slaves. Because they're cogs. Right? Here in America, you can put an idea on a piece of paper, make a business, generate some wealth, off you go. Every single invention out there now that's worth anything, all the brand new ideas come from America. iPads, Google, Facebook, Dell, the internet, lasers, all this stuff. America. Do you know that France, of France's top 10 companies, not one of them is post-World War II? Think about that. Not one. It's all America, baby, economically. 5% of the world's population, 26% of the world's economic output. That's not exceptional, Mr. President. It's exceptional to me. Scientifically, you can measure science. When somebody writes a research paper and they make a breakthrough, it's called a scientific citation. It's a little discovery. It's a unit of science, like a building block of science. Now, in a 10-year period, the number 2 country in the world scientifically was Great Britain. God bless them, little Great Britain. Number 2 in the world. In a 10-year period, they had 880,000 scientific citations. 880,000 in 10 years. During that same 10-year period, the United States of America produced 27,396,432. The United States produces more science than the next 6 countries combined. Combined. That's not exceptional, Mr. Obama? That's not exceptional? I find it very exceptional. And we'll close with culturally. Culturally. Of the 100 top grossing movies in the world, I'm not talking about domestic gross, I'm talking about worldwide gross, the 100 top grossing movie in the world, anybody want to guess what the percentage is an American studio? It's 100%. It's 100%. 100% of the top grossing movies worldwide are produced by American studios and they're spoken in English. 5% of the world's population produces 100% of the top grossing movies culturally. So, by any measure, militarily, economically, scientifically, and culturally, America is the most extraordinary, exceptional nation in the history of the world, and by the widest margin imaginable. I don't have to tell you that, you already know that. Now you know some statistics so you can go out and tell some of these other people this. So those are 7 things that I believe as a conservative. And let me just close with this. People ask me where they think the country is today. Where is America today? Where do we stand? What's going on? And my response to them is to say to them, I believe that right now, the United States of America can best be likened to the Titanic. A lot of people pause when they hear that. They're not happy to hear that. Let me tell you a few things about the Titanic that you may not know. First of all, while everybody talks about how rich the people were on the Titanic wasn't built to take John Jacob Astor back and forth to London. The economic model that caused them to build the Titanic was the enormous immigrant trade to the free world, to America, at the turn of the 1900s, right around the turn of the 20th century. Titanic was constructed to bring people to freedom. That's why they built that ship. And there's much about Titanic that we should admire as conservatives. It was full of innovations, absolutely cutting-edge innovations. It was about wealth and capital and luxury and treating people better than they'd ever been treated before. Providing the best, something that had never been done before. It was a ship that was designed to bring people to freedom. It was a wonderful, miraculous ship of dreams, and now it's sitting at the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean, rusting back into the dirt. Why? Well, we have made remarkable progress in computers, and looking at the Titanic's construction, knowing how fast it was going on that night, looking at the hydrodynamic pressure on the rudder and all these other things, they're able to determine this very, very accurately. Very few people know this, but if those two lookouts in the crow's nest on the night of April 15th, 1912, had seen that iceberg 5 seconds earlier, 5 seconds earlier, time it takes me to say this sentence, Titanic would have missed that iceberg. If they'd seen it 5 seconds earlier and started that turn, they would have just barely missed it. Almost nobody knows this. If those same lookouts on that same evening had seen that iceberg 5 seconds later than they did, Titanic would still come home. Because Titanic was designed to have the first 5 compartments flooded, but not 6. If 6 flooded, she was going to go down. That iceberg sank the Titanic because it went all the way down the side and punched in all of those compartments. If they had seen it 5 seconds later, they would have hit that iceberg straight on, would have crumpled the bow, lost the first compartment, maybe the second compartment, maybe even the third compartment. Maybe 100 people would have died in the collision, not the 1,500 that drowned in those waters that night. It wasn't that there was a 10-second window where you could have saved the Titanic. There was only a 10-second window when you could have sunk the Titanic. And that's where we are right now. My friends, it is too late for us to steer around this giant iceberg of socialism that's out in front of us. Too late. We've missed that opportunity. We missed it a long time ago. We are going to hit this thing. The only choice we have now is to aim right for the center of it, put in all the power we have, and ram that son of a bitch just as hard as we can. Just as hard as we can. And I say that because I know something about that iceberg that you probably don't know. That iceberg out there is hollow. That's a cheap assertion, Bill. What do you mean by that? Well, I'll tell you what I mean. If you have been in the U.S. military or have family that either is or has been in the U.S. military, raise your hands. Yeah, okay, I thought so. America has been built on the backs of people who are ready to die for freedom, ready to die for it. And let's not forget that those men that don't come back from Iwo Jima or Missionary Ridge or Bunker Hill, not only do they die, but all of their children never are born. People will die for freedom. They'll die for it. We look around this room and we've seen people in this room who've already made that decision, have relatives who made that decision. When I say that that opposition is hollow, what I mean is this. Is there anybody out there who actually believes that Bill Maher would die for what he believes in? Does anybody actually think that Michael Moore, if push came to shove, would take a rifle and leave his movie star life and get into a filthy trench someplace on the far side of the world and die an anonymous, painful death all alone for what he believes in? Who believes that? Nobody believes that. Michael Moore doesn't believe that. You cannot defeat people who are ready to die for an idea. And the dying for freedom and liberty is the best idea that has ever come up with. If we don't ram this iceberg of socialism, it's going to do to us what it did to the Titanic. It's going to stave in every single compartment in our society. It's already doing it. Academia, late night comedy, music, schools, colleges, news media, movies, television, knocking them all in, flooding them all, down we go. We got to ram it right smack in the middle. And the reason I'm here talking to you people tonight is because in this final war that every civilization fights, you are the soldiers in this war. It's the first time in history that it has not been dependent on bullets, it's dependent on ideas. We've got to ram that iceberg, and you good people are the front of the ship. So let's go get them. Thanks for having me.